Welcome back, everybody. Episode number 21 of the Plumecast. Thank you again all for another great week. Thank you guys for stopping by. If you're back listening to the Plumecast this week, I really do appreciate you. Appreciate all the support that I have been getting. Now this week, it's going to be three topics I'm going over this week. You may, if you're new here, you may think it's a PlayStation bashing podcast, but it really isn't. It's just there's two big PlayStation topics that are negative that I want to talk about because I find it interesting, and then I want to talk about Halo Infinite and all the craziness going around with that. So that's what I'm going to be talking about this week, so stay tuned. I'll have the timestamps and all that kind of stuff in the description below if you want to just jump over to the section that you want to listen to. Now, if you are new to the podcast, every single week on the podcast I do drink a beer. This week I don't have anything too new or exciting. I've drank it on the podcast before. I didn't have time this week to get out and buy some cool craft beers or something different, and what I'm drinking this week is just one of my favorite beers, Guinness. I mean, I'm sure there's lots of Guinness lovers out there. I've seen people in the comments say that they enjoy Guinness, and it's one of my favorite beers. So I'm having a Guinness, having a great Saturday night. That's when I record the podcast and just enjoying myself. So let me know what you guys are drinking in the comments below. Give me some suggestions. And if you're new here, I actually mark down your suggestions and I look for them whenever I go out and look for beers. And if I find them, I will pick them up and I will drink it on the podcast and give you a shout out and let me know what I think about the beer. So let me know what beer you guys are drinking in the comments below. Now, in terms of games this week, I mean, I've been playing what everybody else has been playing, and that's Psychonauts 2, and it's an absolutely incredible game. They knocked it out of the park. I am just pleasantly happy. I'm so happy that this game is as good as it is. Graphically, platforming is awesome. The story is interesting. Like, the characters are so well done. The writing is amazing. It's an amazing game. It's an absolutely amazing game, Psychonauts 2, and I could not be happier because it was definitely a game that it was up there as one of the games I was most excited for this year, as somebody who played the original game and got it again on Game Pass and played a bit of it some more. I was just so excited to jump into Psychonauts 2 and continue Raz's adventure. But man, what a great job they did at that studio at Double Fine to just completely, I think, blow everyone and shock everyone. I think people thought it would have been a fine game, like a decent game, but I don't think people thought it was going to be as good as it was. And I really think it shows just kind of like what happens when you have huge backing from such a big company like Microsoft, but they don't put their like corporate claws into your creativity, you know what I mean? And like they allow you to create what you want to create and just give you that funding and resources to be able to do it. And I think this is exactly what happened with Psychonauts 2. I think if Microsoft didn't purchase Double Fine, the game still would have come out, but I don't think it would have been nearly as good. And I mean, they even talked about that how much Microsoft helped them create such a great game. Besides that, I played a bit more of the Ascent. Still another awesome game. Playthrough. I played the Riders Republic beta. Oh man, that game is going to be fun. That game is a heck of a fun time. If you like extreme sports and just variety of extreme sports and racing and doing snowboard tricks and ski tricks and all that kind of stuff, and bike racing and riding on a snowmobile, like, it's a fun game. I can't wait for Riders Republic. I'm going to be getting that probably on day one. I think it's going to be like an addicting open world. Just like you're always going to want to go back to it and just get some XP, get a new mountain bike, get a new snowboard and stuff like that. Like it's a lot of fun. So I think it's closed. Yeah, it closed on the 28th. So you can't really check out the open beta anymore, but keep your eyes open. If you like those types of games, you will enjoy Riders Republic. So that's pretty much what I've been playing this week. And I think I'm close to finishing Psychonauts. I think I'm getting near the end. Not 100% sure. I do a lot of the side missions, but I think I'm inching there, and hopefully I'll be done soon. So let me know what you guys have been playing in the comments below. And yeah, let's just jump right into the topics this week. All right, jumping on to a very fascinating thing, very interesting topic, and it is the PlayStation 5. So there is a new PlayStation 5 stealth redesign for the PlayStation 5 digital edition that I talked about on a previous episode. saying that they were creating a new PlayStation 5 that was going to be 300 grams lighter. It was going to have a new screw for the stand so that you didn't have to get like a screwdriver or something to actually screw it into the console. You could just use your hand. And it looks like Austin Evans was able to get his hands on this new PS5 digital and do a direct comparison to the launch version of the PS5 digital. Now, he does like a breakdown in terms of all the different things that are different, such as the sound. He says the sound is slightly quieter with the new PS5 digital, but so minimal that you would not be able to notice the difference. The actual weight of the console is 300 grams lighter. They measure them both. They're actually 300. It's actually 300 grams lighter. The stand does have that little screw and makes it a lot easier to put it on. He takes a look at the heat of these two consoles, and the new PS5 digital is actually about 3 to 5 degrees hotter than the launch version of the PlayStation 5 digital. And then finally, they do a teardown, take it apart, and we see why the new digital PS5 is 300 grams lighter, and it isn't good. It's what I expected. It's what I think anybody who isn't just a crazy rabbit fanboy expected, and it is that they cut corners pretty much, and they took away parts of the heatsink and the heating or the cooling in general on the PS5 in order to make it lighter. And the only reason you can think of why they would do that is because they wanted to cut costs in order to increase their bottom line, to make more money on every single PS5 digital sold. And also, what I'm thinking is they want to push more digital PS5s to their consumers so that they can have more supply and make that the primary version of the PlayStation 5 in order to get people to buy those instead of any disc version, so that you have to buy games off of PlayStation Network and then you're locked into their network and they control the pricing and all that kind of stuff. And we've seen just like how that really isn't a good thing. We've heard indie developers talk about PSN and all that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm assuming they did all of these things. But he goes through it, he tears it down. You see the difference of the actual heat sinks and just the difference in size, and like how there's chunks of the original heatsink that are missing. And what I find absolutely hilarious about all of this too is when PlayStation, when they did their teardown like just before the release of the PS5, and people were waiting for it, and then they finally did it. And one of the thing that the PlayStation community and just like fanboys in general who are making the comparisons between the PlayStation 5, which clearly is not even close in terms of being the better designed console. It's definitely the worst designed out of the Series X and the PS5. Like the Series X is significantly better designed, but a lot of the things the fanboys kept touting was this marvel in engineering of a heatsink, and like, oh my god, look how big it is, and look how well it's going to cool the console. It's such a great piece of engineering from Sony that can never be done by anybody else. It's hilarious because with this new Stealth redesign, they actually cut some of that heatsink out, and it could be an issue going forward. Now, when it comes to the actual heating of the console, Austin Evans used one of those thermal cameras that it does show you how hot parts of a device are, but it's not the best way, you could say, to actually get the real readings of the heat. Gamers Nexus did an actual, I don't know what it is, but like connecting wires and all this kind of stuff in order to measure the actual heats of the chips and stuff like that within the Series X and the PlayStation 5, measure the heat of the memory and all that kind of stuff. And he, in those two videos that he did, the Series X and the PS5 one, he clearly said that there were no issues with the Series X, or he had no concerns with the heat of the Series X, but he did have concerns with the heat of the memory of the PlayStation 5. Now, that was a launch PS5. The redesigned PS5 is going to get hotter than the launch PS5, which to me sounds extremely concerning going forward if the heat becomes a bigger and bigger issue. Now, you have to think about in terms of just the PS5 getting hot, and then you have to think about it in terms of adding that external SSD that we know you can buy one off the shelf. Those things get really hot. You have to put a heatsink on it, but that's going to just increase the overall heat of the actual console itself. So This doesn't look good. His actual title of the video is "The New PS5 Is Worse," and I would agree just by what he showed off here that the new PS5 is clearly just a cost-cutting measure in order for Sony to make more money off of each unit that they sold, to make more money for their shareholders. They're a big corporation, and the matter of fact is corporations, Microsoft as well, even though Microsoft has just done, I think, an outstanding job of doing their best to make consumer friendly decisions with the Xbox, but in general, corporations, they don't care about you. If you're a big PlayStation fan out there and you see this kind of stuff, you should be concerned about it. You shouldn't just brush it off like it's nothing, because I don't think that it will end up being nothing, because they are cutting costs to hurt their consumer to make more money for their shareholders and for the company, which, I mean, you step back, you get rid of all of the fake outrage that we may see. From either side, doesn't really matter, but all the fake outrage and everything, that's what corporations do. It's not a terrible thing that they're doing here. They're not like a terrible people or all this kind of stuff. And I'm not outraged about it. I just look at it and I think like, yeah, this could be an issue going forward. But they probably sat down and did testing and all that kind of stuff, like Austin Evans mentions in the video, and I agree with him that they probably have almost a year of testing now with the PlayStation 5, and they came to the conclusion that, hey, if we cut some of these costs, we cut some of these things out of the PlayStation 5, it will be okay. It's nothing that's it's not gonna explode on us or anything like that, and it's worth the risk of having a bit more heat in the console and making more money. So I don't think people are going to go out and buy this new digital PS5 and they're just going to start breaking down on them and all that kind of stuff. I think the longevity of these newer PS5s is going to be worse than the older ones, just because they're going to be hotter. You know, with computers and everything, if there's high amounts of heat for long periods of time, they die faster, that kind of stuff. And then you think about consoles and the amount of dust that gets into consoles, even though it has like those dust filter things within the PS5, but the amount of dust that gets in, like the vents get blocked, all of that kind of stuff. I just think it's a recipe for disaster for the long-term viability of these PlayStation 5s. But then you sit back and think, Sony knows that within a year or two from now, they're going to be making a completely redesigned slim PS5. And when it comes to PlayStation, from what I understand, the revisions have always been worse in terms of like heat and sound and all that kind of stuff. Like the PS3, the slim PS3, the PS4, then the slimmer PS4, and then the PS4 Pro. Like the PS4 Pro sound like a jet engine and all that and all those things. So to them, they prioritize cutting those costs to make more money on their bottom line, and that's just the fact of the matter. Which, I mean, they're a corporation, and that's their job for their shareholders. So I don't know. It sucks on the consumer end if you're somebody out there who's a PlayStation person, and you maybe, because I think these are only in Japan and Australia right now, but if they come over to the West, to Canada, United States, you're probably not going to have to worry about these new redesigns for a little bit. But there's a difference in the serial number. I think it's like 1105 versus like 1100 or something like that. So you would know if you got it or not. But yeah, I don't know what to think about this other than it's just, I always go back to that original video I made about comparing the designs of the Series X and the PS5, and it is so obvious that the Series X was just such a better design console. Like, you can tell that the engineering team at Xbox, at Microsoft, just really knocked it out of the park, and people just kept on hating on that and defending the design decisions of the PS5 when it was so obvious from day one the PS5 is just a badly designed console. Like, it's not good. It's big, it's bulky, it's ugly, it's heavy, it's hot, it's all of these things. It's just terrible. Like, that's the best way to put it. And anyone who thinks that saying that you're a hater or that you're a fanboy of Xbox is just, they're just absurd. They're just absurd people that you should just like ignore, because it's just so funny. You look at this now too. This is a new PS5, and the thing that everybody marveled at was that heatsink, and then they cut it. They're cutting parts from it to reduce the weight for one reason only, and that is to make more money on each unit sold, because they have to, because that's how they survive, because they don't have the ecosystem of like the subscription and all that kind of stuff. Or they do with PSN and with PS Now, but they don't have like the Game Pass mentality where you can play anywhere. You have to get a PS5 to play a lot of their games, and they're going to keep doing that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I'm gonna, this just came out Saturday night when I saw it, so it's actually kind of late for me this time when I'm recording this podcast, but it just came out. I'm so interested to see how like the community reacts to it, and how people do dance circles and move goalposts, all these things, just to like say that, oh, it's not a problem, it's fine. Because I think that if you really do, if you're such a console warrior, or if you really do care about a certain product, and you love where you play and you love PlayStation, you're a big fan, there's nothing wrong with that. Like the fan part not being the console warrior part, that part is just absurd. But if you're such a big fan, like you should want to give your money to the company, like a company that you love that does stuff for you as a consumer. You shouldn't just want to just give it to them because they're Sony and their PlayStation. And that's what I think Sony has built in terms of their fan base from PS1, PS2, PS3. And I mean, good. That's like impressive what they've done, where Sony has built such a rabid fan base with PlayStation that they could literally put out PlayStation, like a new game called PlayStation Poop, and people will run out and spend $80 on it. They'll spend $90 on it just because it says PlayStation on it. So that's impressive, but it's obvious that they are definitely, they take advantage of their consumers in ways that, I mean, you need a breakdown video like this for you to see it. But anyways, those are my thoughts on it. I ranted enough on this. Let me know what you guys think about this in the comments below. All right, moving on here to something very interesting. It has to do with Ratchet & Clank's Rifts. And if you remember way back when they showed off Ratchet & Clank, one of the biggest draws for this game, one of the biggest marketing pieces that Sony and Insomniac used was the actual rifts within Ratchet & Clank. And they kept saying that the jumping from rift to rift, from different section to different section, couldn't be done unless you had the PlayStation 5 SSD. Well, it seems like that may not be the case, as John Burton, who founded Traveler's Tales, so now TT Games, in 1989, and has directed dozens of Lego crossover games before leaving the company in 2019, made some claims and did a deep dive on his channel on YouTube called Coding Secrets Channel, and talked about how Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, the rifts and going from different section to different section, could actually be achieved on older hardware, PS3 and PS4, and how the claim that Insomniac was making that you needed the PS5 SSD in order to actually get this stuff to work was misleading. Now, before we jump into this, all of this, before I go over what he says, this isn't really surprising. When they first showed off the rifts, and they kept saying you needed that SSD to pull it off, I was very skeptical that that was actually the case. And when you read through this article here and you listen to what he says, it really does seem like they were definitely misleading consumers. And it's just, it's been a practice of like what Sony has done this entire launch of the PlayStation 5. I know this sounds like this is like a big Sony bashing podcast this week, but it's hard to ignore, because you look at the PS5 at launch, they 100%, in my opinion, knew Gran Turismo wasn't going to come out, God of War wasn't going to come out, and they still said that those were coming out in 2021. And Horizon Forbidden West, I think like they knew there was like a good chance it was going to get delayed, and that got delayed until 2022. And then you think about this with Ratchet & Clank, using Ratchet & Clank's Rifts as like the big selling game, the reason why you buy a PS5, and the next gen reason, because of that SSD, as it being so super powerful and super fast and all this kind of stuff. And that's going to be the reason why you get a PS5, because it's going to do things that no other console is going to be able to do. And then we see stuff like this coming out, and it just keeps happening and happening. He even started way back with the believing in generations thing, and then going back on that, realizing that, hey, we probably should still believe in the PS4, because there are so many PS4s out in the wild that we need to make sure that those people are still buying stuff from us. So it's just like been a never ending tale of misleading from Sony and from PlayStation. I just feel like nobody calls it out, or not enough people do call it out, because I feel like their fanboys and their fans in general are just so rabid that they have such blinders on it, and that Sony and PlayStation can't do anything wrong. So this is just another misleading thing. So let's get into what he says, because Burden actually accuses INSOMNIAC of being somewhat misleading when it claims that the portal traveling mechanic would not have been possible without the solid state drive of the PlayStation 5. Says that the way the Rift gameplay was represented before launch was pretty misleading. Amazing sequences of Ratchet zipping between many other worlds all chained together into awesome action sequences ended up being mostly just cutscenes or very short sections of very limited gameplay. And that is definitely it. Like when I've played through Ratchet & Clank, and don't get me wrong, I actually think out of all the developers within PlayStation, INSOMNIAC is my favorite. Like I think they make the most fun games at PlayStation. People may disagree with me, but I much prefer INSOMNIAC games over Naughty Dog games. I think that Naughty Dog games have way too many cutscenes, and they're kind of boring in a sense where you're just kind of walking from point A to point B for a lot of them. But INSOMNIAC, you think about Spider-Man. Spider-Man's a great game, and I thought Ratchet & Clank: The Rift Part was a lot of fun. So I think INSOMNIAC makes great games, but they're obviously overshadowed by the corporate messaging that Sony puts on them that they have to say, and this was probably something that they were told that they had to say from Sony. I could be wrong on that, but that's just the way I think the messaging came down. And the actual rifts were very limited in the game. Like there were rifts, like you go through them, but it wasn't like you were going from rift to rift to rift into these amazing expansive worlds every time you went into a rift. They were very minor in where you transported to. And he continues talking about that within the article. So it's interesting. We'll keep going on this. So he says he made it clear that the PS5 is not using the SSD's fast loading speeds to do everything properly, but that it's not true to claim that these set pieces aren't possible to pull off on older hardware. So you can pull it off on older hardware. It says here that the two main tricks in the game, or it breaks down the two main tricks in the game and says that they can both be pulled off on PS4, and which is even crazier, even the PlayStation 3 hardware. So that's how I would say misleading the claims were from his explanation. He says that the bonus pocket dimension areas are the easiest to pull off because they're small stages with limited scenery in them. Now, they could be using all kinds of solid state drive trickery to pull these off, but because it's just one rift and it always goes to the same area, this can easily be achieved on older hardware. The pocket dimensions are really graphically basic and in fact just seem to use a lot of the same generic objects like crates that would already be available in generic memory. So it's pretty much a sky dome, a few platforms, generic objects, and nice lighting. So on older hardware, it wouldn't take much memory, especially as it also uses these generic objects, all of which make it to quick load. And I think that's spot on how he explains the scenes, because yeah, there are just lots of boxes everywhere. There are generic objects everywhere. The lighting is absolutely beautiful in the game. Like you play this on a nice TV, you go into not the performance, but the other mode there, the graphics fidelity mode, and I believe with ray tracing, it looks stunning. It's a great looking game, 100%, but there isn't that much variety in the amount of objects on each scene. And a lot of the scenes are linear. Like you're just kind of going through a linear stage where you're going point A to point B, and the stuff that you interact with and all that kind of stuff, there isn't too much there. So I agree with what he says there. So he says here that using an example section where Ratchet on a speeder bike goes through a portal and lands on a grind rail, Burden states that the game is deliberately placing the player into very small stages and giving them limited control to help manage the data it's streaming in. And yeah, that was a lot of it. Like you'd be grinding, and like so you go on the speeder bike and all that kind of stuff, you go through a portal and you wouldn't be able to like run around into this huge expansive open world once you went through the portal. You were just going on from one section to another, being directed to it. So it says the important thing to note here is that none of this is optional, it's forced. This is important because it means you can preload the grind rail section while you are playing the speeder section. In fact, every section of the sequence is both forced and small. You only move across a very small part of the world and a very little ability to even move during the section. This means the game has the whole time you're playing the section to load into the next section. So I guess that's how it works. So as you're going from point A to point B in that smaller section previously, the next section is already loaded once you go in, and I guess that can easily be achieved on older hardware. So it says, so imagine the game has 2 memory buffers. The first buffer holds the section you're currently playing in. While you're playing, it can load the next section to the second buffer. The transition between the buffers, you can just have a very simple immediate void location permanently in the memory to hide any swap over glitches that might happen. So I mean, I'm not a developer. I don't 100% know what this stuff means, but he seems like he understands what he's talking about based off of what he's saying. Because I'm just explaining how the other pretty simple techniques can be used to achieve exactly the same thing on older hardware. So that's the gist of what his point was of this video. And yeah, I believe it. I mean, I'll be honest, like I believe it. I didn't think the Rift stuff was that impressive playing the game. Like it was cool and all, but we take a look at another example. Like we just got Psychonauts 2, and it seems like there is something very similar within Psychonauts 2. And here's a Twitter video. Now I've experienced this. I've played like about 7-8 hours so far, I think, of Psychonauts 2, and I think it's a great game. But this is a section where you're just exploring the world. You're with Raz, and there's an open fridge you can run through to a completely different area, a completely different world that's generated as soon as you walk through that portal. And Double Fine Productions and Xbox Game Studios didn't say that you needed you didn't need the specific hardware within the Series X to be able to achieve this stuff. So they didn't mislead with their portals, but it seems like Ratchet & Clank and Insomniac did. And I just think it's just another, like I said at the beginning, it's just like another misleading kind of lie that Sony has been doing this entire generation. And, you know, I'm sure they've been doing this for a very long time. I personally haven't really followed it as closely during the PS4 era or the PS3 era with the stuff that they would say, and then if they would deliver on that kind of stuff, compared to how how closely I'm following it now. And if you don't follow it closely, you're not going to catch a lot of this stuff. You're not going to think it's misleading. You're just going to think that you know they made a mistake, or it's something happened and whatever, right? But if you do follow it closely, it's definitely a strategy for them. They know that they can push anything they want out to their fan base, and their fan base will eat it up without taking a step back and being logical about it. And then if they mislead, or if they don't deliver on that, their fan base, like from what I can see, and I could be wrong on this, don't really care, and they don't really like demand better, which is an issue. Because if you think back to the Xbox One, the Xbox community, in my opinion, from what I saw, and I'm sure there's some people who didn't, so this isn't, I'm not trying to like make an over-encompassing comment to include everybody within there, but from what I could see was a lot of people say, you know what, Xbox, you guys messed up with the launch of the Xbox One. You need to fix this. We're not going to support it until you fix it, until it gets better. And I mean, because the Xbox One had a brutal launch, and a lot of people left from the Xbox 360 and bought a PS4. They didn't buy an Xbox One. I was one of those people. I was 100% one of those people. I did buy an Xbox One when Master Chief Collection came out, like later down. But at launch, I did not buy an Xbox One. I bought a PS4. I went from the 360, a console that I absolutely loved, and Xbox had my heart with the 360, and as it had a lot of people. But they just messed up with the launch. They messed up with the design, the size of the console, and just overall what their strategy was with the Xbox One. It was terrible. So I bought a PS4, and I think a lot of people did that. But with PS5, like nobody has called them out, or they haven't had to suffer at all for misleading people with games that were supposed to come out in 2021, and with just designing a terribly designed console. Like PS5 is a badly designed console, as I talked about in my other segment. So they're going to just keep doing what they do because it doesn't matter, because they still make a ton of money. It's like with anything. You think of like Call of Duty too, right? People get mad at Call of Duty because they release the same thing every year, but they're the best selling game every year, so they're going to keep releasing it. Same with Madden. Madden's a terrible game. Madden is one of the worst video games, sports video games out there, in my opinion. It is just so bad, and it's been so bad for many years. But you know why they don't improve on it? Because people still go out and buy it over and over and over again, and then there's not any point. Like, we thought we were going to get a better franchise this year, and it's a slightly better, but it's still not that much better. Anyways, now I'm just completely ranting on different topics, but my point of all of this is I find that Sony and PlayStation have been extremely misleading with the lead up to the PS5 through the launch of the PlayStation 5, and because they can. I guess that's the best way to put it. Just because they can. All right, to end off today's show, I want to talk about Halo Infinite, as it was a major topic this week. Not only did we get those just absolutely beautiful announcements for the Series X special or limited edition console and for the actual Elite 2 controller, and I have to say that I am very lucky. I actually got the Elite controller. I didn't think I was going to get the Series X, but the day after they got announced and released for pre-sale on Microsoft's website, I was able to actually get the next day at GameStop, and just honestly out of pure luck, because I saw a guy on Twitter say, hey, go to GameStop and they are accepting pre-orders for the Halo Infinite Series X limited edition console. You have to put like $100 down on it though, and then you have to buy like another game, like $50 worth of a game once you pick it up, which, I mean, it's fine. I'll buy another game with it, like something I haven't played yet. It's not a big deal, but I thought it was like, I didn't think I had a chance. So I woke up that morning and I did some work, and then I took a break and I went and I did a little workout, and it was like, I don't know, it was like 11:30. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna call GameStop. I'm just gonna call them and just see what happens. So I call the GameStop closest to me, and they're like, yeah, we have pre-orders, but you have to get here as soon as possible because I can't tell you how many we have, and I can't hold it for you. So I'm like, okay, I'll be there in 20 minutes. You think I'll get one? She's like, I can't tell you whether. I have no idea if you're gonna get one or not. So I show up, and as I show up, there's a guy in front of me who was just talking, like saying, oh man, like this is awesome, like my birthday is when this comes out, and everything comes out near my birthday, and I assumed he was talking about the Halo Infinite console, or just Halo Infinite in general. He didn't actually specifically say Halo Infinite, and he was talking about it. So then I go up, I'm like, yeah, do you have any more Halo Infinite pre-orders? And she's like, I just sold my last one. So they just sold it to that last guy. So I'm like, okay, well then it's not meant to be. I'm not getting this console. It's like God telling me you can't spend the money on this console. You don't need. There's absolutely no reason for you to buy this. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. Like I don't need this console. I have a Series X. Like I'll sell the Series X I have if I get the new one, but like I don't need it. It's not like it's more of a big want. So I'm like, okay, there's no way that any other GameStop is going to have the Halo Infinite Series X limited edition. So then I call another one, and luckily, I don't know how, they had one. They had a pre-order, and I raced over to that one, which was like about 10 to 15 minutes away from the one I was at, and I was able to get the pre-order. So I guess I just got lucky on that. I'm surprised. I just feel like a lot of people didn't know that GameStop was giving out the pre-orders, that they had the console on hand, because there was no announcement for it. I didn't see anything on Twitter. I could be wrong. Maybe I didn't look hard enough, but I didn't see anything on Twitter from GameStop Canada that they had them, and didn't see anything from Microsoft. All I knew was that they were up for pre-order on their website. And I was thinking, this is probably like when they released the Project Scorpio edition of the Xbox One X, where you could only get that off of their website, because I got one of those, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't get that from like GameStop or something. I could be wrong with that as well, but I'm pretty sure you couldn't, at least where I was. So yeah, I was able to get that. I'm very, very excited because it's such a beautiful console. Like the night before, when I wasn't able to get the online pre-order, I kept like having to convince myself, like, oh, I don't need it. It's not a big deal. Like, whatever. I got the Elite Series 2. I don't need it. And I just kept trying to make myself believe that I didn't want it. But yeah, damn, I wanted it. It's beautiful. So very, very happy to have that. But what's weird with GameStop is they say that the actual release for the console itself is on December 8th, which is with the game. That's what they have in their system. So I may not be getting mine until the actual release of Halo Infinite, which is, I guess, fine. I don't really care when I get it. Just the fact that I have one is cool. But maybe that'll change and they'll advance it to November 15th. But yeah, I'll at least have hopefully if Microsoft sends it out for people who pre-ordered the controller, that they get it on November 15th. I'll at least have that on November 15th. But that's not what we're here to talk about. I know I just went on a 5-minute rambling story about my luck of getting the Halo Infinite Series X limited edition. We're here to talk about Halo Infinite and the big thing in the news. I made a video about it, and when I made the Halo Infinite multiplayer progression, that's what we're talking about. But when I made that video, I thought I made a pretty like down to earth, like, you know, like rational video as of what was going on, saying like, this is what's happening, this is my concern. But you know what? I feel like 343 listens to the community, and if it doesn't work out the way that they think it's going to work out, then they will listen, they'll make changes, and they'll adjust and do better. And I think that was the important part of that video, and that was the important point of it, that you could see that they were already addressing people on Twitter. It's not like they put out the news that the progression for Halo Infinite, in case you haven't heard, is going to be tied to challenges within the Battle Pass and not just from like playing a match, you're not going to get XP. So, and they addressed people's comments, and they talked about the challenges and their concerns and all that type of stuff. So they definitely listened to the community. And I made that video with just like, I thought was very rational, not knowing just all of the just absolutely insane fake outrage that was going on social media. And I should have known better. There's fake outrage about anything. It's one of the most annoying things to me when it comes to video games, when it comes to just everything in general, is that people think that because an influencer they follow, a YouTuber they follow, or follow somebody that they think is cool on social media they follow, or their friend that they follow, I don't know what it is, but if they see that their opinion is outraged because the influencer, the YouTuber, the media person have to be outraged in order to get clicks and generate traction to whatever they're doing, like that's why they do it. It's not because they're actually outraged. Like, here's the newsflash, guys: the people that your influencers that are outraged or really happy about something, 99% of the time it's all fake, because that's how they get clicks and views. But the thing is, I think people think that because they feel a certain way, that they themselves have to feel a certain way, and that's just not how it has to go. Like, you can think whatever you want, it doesn't matter. And when it comes to Halo Infinite, when it comes to Halo in general, and when it comes to 343, people just want Halo to fail because it's 343. Because as soon as 343 took over Halo, and I saw somebody wrote this in my comments, and like I completely agree. It's like, because it doesn't have Bungie on the cover anymore, people just want Halo to fail and they want to hate on it. And you know what? This progression system, this multiplayer progression system, I still have my concerns. I think it's completely rational, and it's completely okay to have reasonable concern over this. I think that's completely normal. But if you think that Halo is going to fail now, or it's going to be dead before it even starts because of this, you're just out of your mind, in my opinion. Like, that makes absolutely no sense. But my concern with this is that people are going to be camping for challenges. Or when I say camping, I don't actually literally mean sitting in a corner shooting people in the game, or, you know, trying to get kills in the game because of a challenge. What I mean is they're just going to be like rushing towards the needler, rushing towards the rocket launcher, right? And if it's capture the flag, they're not even going to capture the flag. They're just going to try to get those challenges. And I think that's a legitimate concern to have, because when I play Halo, when a lot of people play Halo multiplayer, I want to win the game. Like, I want to play with a team that plays to win the game, whether that is just jumping into a pub match with like random people I don't know and everyone has a mic, or playing with your friends. And I want to play to win the game. I want to play for the objective. So I think that's what has people most concerned about this progression system. But the thing is, we don't have any idea what the challenges are going to be. And one great point that I didn't even think about in my video, that it makes sense to me now, is that the battle pass is not time limited. The challenges are not time limited like many other challenges, like many other battle passes we see out there. So if you don't complete a challenge today, you're not going to think that you have to like if you log on and you see a challenge to get 10 kills with a needler, you know that if you don't complete it today, you can complete it tomorrow. So that may deter people from trying to camp those challenges and stuff. And like I said, we don't know what the challenges are going to be. We don't know if the challenges are going to be win 10 matches and you get the most XP, capture the flag and you get XP, right? We don't know if they're going to create a lot of challenges that promote people to play as a team and to win games and to not just like ruin the flow of battle within Halo. So, I mean, I'm still concerned, but I'm going to give it to the benefit of the doubt until we see how it all plays out. I'm not going to be completely just like insanely outraged about everything because it's Halo. I feel like people love to get so outraged about Halo. Maybe I'm being a bit defensive because Halo is one of my favorite franchises, if not my favorite franchise of all time. So like, I want it to succeed. I'm rooting, honestly, I'm so hardly rooting right now for this challenge system to just knock it out of the park and be so good. And you know what? If it isn't, it isn't. It's not a big deal, but I'm just rooting for it just because of all the stupid outrage out there. I just want to see all the outrages look so dumb. That's honestly how I feel right now. That's why I'm really hoping that this challenge system, it does well. But yeah, it's locked to challenges. The battle pass isn't time based, so like if you don't finish challenge, you can do it the next day. There's going to be and then another thing people get outraged about, which is just like, it doesn't make sense to me as well, is that there's like a microtransaction in the store where you can pay to swap a challenge. Yeah, no shit. The game's free to play. They have to make money somehow off the multiplayer. I think people completely forget that Halo Infinite, first of all, is on Xbox Game Pass. So there's going to be like 20 million people or plus or whatever playing Halo with their Xbox Game Pass subscription, and there's going to be millions more, I don't know, millions, but like a lot of people subscribing to Game Pass when Halo drops to play Halo Infinite campaign. And then there's going to be millions and millions of people that play Halo Infinite multiplayer and not pay a dime, not pay a single dollar. So I just don't get what the concern and outrage is about like having a microtransaction to swap out a challenge to because they have to make money somehow, you know. And the microtransactions and the battle pass is all for cosmetics. And that's another great point that I read that I agree with, is since the battle pass doesn't give you advantages in game, it's not going to give you weapons, it's not going to give you like power ups, stuff like that. It's going to give you cosmetics to customize your Spartan. Theoretically, if you don't really care about that kind of stuff, you don't even have to worry about the battle pass. You know, you don't even have to worry about doing your challenges. If you just want to go in and play Halo and have a good time, you're going to be on an even playing field every match, whether you level up in your battle pass or not. So the outrage makes no sense. It's a free to play game. I think people forget that, yes, it's free to play, but it's still a company that needs to make money to be successful if we want to see more content for Halo. So I don't know. I think the outrage is absurd. I'm going to give the challenges system the benefit of the doubt for the multiplayer progression, because we've seen this in many other battle passes and works out. And at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, or if people are just not enjoying playing the game because there isn't per game XP gain, then they'll add it in. I really do believe that they will add that in. But I think that what their goal here is, they're trying to create a system for a free-to-play game that keeps people engaged at all times. And one of the big issues with the tech test was that the challenges ran out super fast. Like, you could get through them no problem. But again, this has also been addressed by INSOMNIAC, or what's his name? Yeah, John INSOMNIAC, the community manager, that he would be very surprised although not impossible, he'd be very surprised if people can get through all the challenges in one game, because in one day, because there are so many. So overall, I think that there's just a lot. I think we got to wait and see on this. And I think all the outrage right now is just, a lot of it is fake outrage, and it's annoying. And I think Halo Infinite, I'm standing by, so I've stood by it since they showed off the trailer that again got a lot of the more fake outrage back in, was it July of 2020? I forget the exact time, but you know the one I'm talking about with Craig. Tons of fake outrage for that. I thought the game actually looked really fun in terms of gameplay. It looked decent in terms of the graphics. Yeah, it wasn't the most polished, but it looked okay. But I've stood by ever since then that Halo Infinite was going to be a great game. 343 was going to knock it out of the park, and I'm not going to sway from that at all. And, you know, I may be an idiot about this because, I mean, they haven't shown more campaign yet. We're still waiting on more campaign footage. And there was an explanation as to why they haven't shown more campaign. As Joseph Staten says, for the campaign, it means putting, when he's talking about why they haven't shown off another trailer, and he says, for the campaign, that means putting maximum effort into ensuring the wide open adventure-filled experience you'll get to play on December 8th is as great as it can possibly be, and gameplay demos and trailers not only take a huge amount of effort to do well, they also take cycles away from bugs and other shutdown tasks. And I can understand why he's saying that, because, you know, it probably took them a decent amount of time to create that original campaign trailer, and all the backlash you got, it probably slowed them down a lot in terms of completing the campaign and working on it and all that kind of stuff, even though I believe it wasn't like an up-to-date build that they showed. But I think they're worried that if they show something and it's not the right thing, it could have a lot of backlash and it could hurt the launch leading up to December 8th. I don't think it means that they aren't close to being finished. So I don't know. I have faith in the campaign. I have faith that we've already played the tech test and it was a ton of fun, and I have faith that Halo Infinite is going to turn out really well. And until I'm proven wrong when this game, if I'm proven wrong when this game releases on December 8th and the campaign is a mess, then I will admit, or not even admit, but I will express my complete disappointment with Halo Infinite's lead up to launch, because again, it's a live service and it will improve if it is in a bad state at launch. But if it does launch in a bad state, if the single player campaign launches in a bad state, it will be a major disappointment. But I have faith that it's not going to. So when it comes to everything with Halo Infinite, with the multiplayer progression and everything else, I just think there's so much fake outrage, and it's just annoying, especially for a franchise that I love so much and I know a lot of other people love so much. And I think that everything's going to be okay. People just need to relax a little bit, take a deep breath, and use a little bit of, like, you know, rational thinking before jumping to these conclusions. I made a video and when talking about what people were worried about, but I think I was rational in it, and I just think that, like, the multiplayer isn't going to be nearly as devastating as some people think. So, but hey, it could. But I really, really hope the challenges thing works out well, just because of all the fake outrage. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. But yeah, that's going to wrap it up for Plumecast episode number 21. As usual, guys, thank you for all the support you've been giving me. It has been awesome. And let me know what you think about all the stuff I talked about in this week's episode. But yeah, that's it. If you guys are new here, you've listened through this entire thing, please consider subscribing to help grow the channel, help grow the community. And I will catch you throughout the week in my videos and next week on the Plumecast.
We'll be right back.